We're also learning about the 3 victims in yesterday's triple homicide on Indian Summer Drive.
Yeah, so one of those, a 5-year-old boy. Investigators say Eric Ashley, Arkia Berry, and her 5-year-old son Landyn Brooks were fatally shot yesterday evening around 5:30. Officers found them in a crashed car on Indian Summer Drive. That's right near the Echo Highlands neighborhood.
In the last moments of her life, as gunfire shattered the windows of her blue Nissan Maxima and bullets tore through the vehicle where her 5-year-old son sat strapped in his booster seat behind her, a 28-year-old hairstylist didn't call 911 or text her family goodbye. Instead, she typed out a single word and hit send: Jaco. That text message, sent at 5:09 in the afternoon on July 13, 2024, would become the most crucial piece of evidence in a triple homicide investigation that allegedly started over $2,000 and ended with 3 people dead in a Birmingham neighborhood. This is the story of Arkia Berry, a devoted mother rebuilding her life after tragedy, her 5-year-old son Landyn Brooks, who was just weeks away from starting kindergarten, and her boyfriend Eric Ashley Jr., who tried desperately to save them in his final moments, and how a debt may have triggered a massacre that devastated multiple families. If you believe victims like Arkia and Landyn deserve justice and that their stories must be told, please subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. Arkia Berry was born on September 9, 1995, and grew up in Center Point, a suburb located northeast of Birmingham, Alabama. It's a working-class community where families put down roots, where children attend the same schools their parents did, and where people build lives centered around work, faith, and family. Arkia attended Parker High School and graduated around 2013 before pursuing her passion for the beauty industry by enrolling in cosmetology school. She discovered early on that she had a natural talent for hairstyling, particularly braiding and protective styles that required patience, skill, and an artistic eye. Arkia built her reputation slowly but steadily, connecting with clients through word of mouth and through her Instagram account, which eventually grew to over 3,400 followers. She didn't just see hairstyling as a job or a way to make money. She saw it as a form of artistry and a way to make people feel beautiful and confident. Those who knew Arkia personally described her as hardworking, dedicated to her craft, and absolutely devoted to her family. Her cousin Annahad Berry would later describe their relationship as being like 2 peas in a pod, explaining that Arkia poured everything she had into her work and into the people she loved. She wasn't someone who did anything halfway. When she committed to something or someone, she gave it her full energy and attention. The center of Arkia's world arrived on March 3, 2019, when she gave birth to her son Landyn Brooks. From the moment he was born, Landyn became Arkia's primary focus and motivation. Everything she did, every hour she worked standing on her feet styling hair, every sacrifice she made, was for him. She wanted to provide him with opportunities, stability, and a future filled with possibilities. But tragedy struck their small family early and in a way that would eerily foreshadow the violence that would eventually claim both their lives. On September 25, 2020, when Landyn was just 18 months old, his father Learius J. Brooks was found shot to death inside his apartment at Watertown Lodge Apartments in Birmingham's Roebuck neighborhood. The discovery was even more disturbing because investigators found his body partially burned in what they believed was an intentional fire set to cover up the crime and destroy evidence. Despite a thorough investigation by Birmingham police, no arrests were ever made in Learius Brooks' murder. The case went cold, joining the frustrating list of unsolved homicides that leave families without answers or closure. Landyn would grow up without his biological father, never having the chance to know the man whose life was stolen when he was still a toddler. From that point forward, Arkia raised her son as a single mother while simultaneously building her hairstyling business and ensuring Landyn had everything he needed to thrive. She worked long hours, often on her feet all day, but she always made time for her son. She attended his activities, played with him, read to him, and made sure he felt loved and secure despite the absence of his father. By 2024, Landyn had grown into a cheerful, energetic 5-year-old boy who loved playing youth football and couldn't stop talking excitedly about starting kindergarten that fall. His coach, Kelsh Marsh, would later recall spending time with Landyn just hours before his death, watching him laugh and play with his teammates, full of life and innocence. Landyn was the kind of child who made adults smile, who had a contagious enthusiasm for life, and who should have had decades ahead of him to grow into the person he was meant to become. Arkia had also found love again by 2024 with Eric Ashley Jr., a 28-year-old man from Hoover, Alabama, who maintained a quiet life with no criminal history or involvement in street activity. Eric stepped into the role of father figure for Landyn, and the three of them were building what appeared to be a stable, happy life together. They were moving forward, creating memories, planning for the future, seemingly far removed from the violence that had already claimed Landyn's biological father. What they didn't know, what they couldn't have known, was that danger was already circling closer. Phone records would later reveal that Eric had been in regular contact with a man named Jacorrian McGregor, someone Eric knew well enough to save in his phone under two different variations of the same nickname, Jack and Jaco. Text messages exchanged between them in the hours and days leading up to July 13, 2024, indicated they were planning to meet, though the messages never explicitly specified exactly when or where that meeting would take place. Eric had even searched for McGregor's Facebook profile in the days before July 13th, suggesting he was preparing for some kind of encounter or trying to gather information. Whether Eric sensed danger or simply wanted to confirm who he was dealing with remains unclear. But what is clear from the digital trail is that Eric Ashley and Jacorrian McGregor had communicated regularly, and something about their relationship was coming to a head. If you're still watching and believe this case deserves attention, please take a moment to like this video and share it. Subscribe to stay updated as this case moves toward trial. The afternoon of July 13th, 2024, started like any other summer Saturday in Birmingham. The weather was hot. Families were out enjoying the weekend. Children were playing in neighborhoods across the city. But at 5:07 that afternoon, surveillance cameras positioned around the Highlands neighborhood captured something that would become crucial to the investigation. A lime green Kia Soul entered the residential area, a distinctive vehicle that would be easy to track on camera footage. Highlands is a quiet, family-oriented neighborhood where children ride bikes in the street, where neighbors know each other by name, and where serious crime is relatively uncommon. It's the kind of place with limited entry and exit points, which made it easier for investigators to later track vehicle movements through surveillance systems. 1 minute after the lime green Kia entered the neighborhood, at 5:08, Arkia's blue Nissan Maxima followed behind, captured on the same camera system. At exactly 5:08, Eric Ashley placed a phone call to the number saved in his phone as Jaco, as their Nissan rolled deeper into the neighborhood. Cell tower data would later confirm that both Eric's phone and McGregor's phone were pinging off the same cell tower at that exact moment, placing them in immediate proximity to each other. Whatever meeting Eric and McGregor had planned was about to happen. But instead of a conversation or a peaceful exchange, what came next was explosive violence. At 5:09 in the afternoon, gunfire erupted near the entrance to Highlands Park on Indian Summer Drive. It wasn't a few scattered shots. It was a rapid and relentless barrage, a sustained attack that left no room for escape or survival. Investigators would later recover between 20 and 30 shell casings scattered across the roadway, the grass, and a nearby yard, indicating that someone had unleashed a devastating volley of bullets from what was likely a semi-automatic weapon with a high-capacity magazine. The passenger side of the Nissan Maxima was riddled with bullet holes, the windows shattered, the metal punctured repeatedly. Eric Ashley, who had been sitting in the front passenger seat, took the brunt of the initial assault. Bullets ripped through the vehicle around him, but somehow, even as he was being shot, Eric managed to shift his position and attempted to move into the driver's seat. In those chaotic, terrifying final seconds, he tried desperately to get them away from the attack, to drive them to safety, to save Arkia and Landyn. The Nissan lurched forward as Eric grabbed the wheel, but his strength was fading fast. The car jumped a curb and crashed violently into someone's front yard, coming to rest on residential property. In those final moments, while her boyfriend was trying desperately to save them, and while her 5-year-old son sat terrified in his booster seat in the back, Arkia Berry pulled out her phone and typed one last message with hands that may have already been injured or covered in blood. She typed one word, Jaco. She hit send at 5:09, just as the gunfire was still echoing through the neighborhood. Then she either dropped the phone or could no longer hold on to it, leaving behind what investigators would interpret as her dying attempt to identify her killer. It was a final act of extraordinary courage, a mother's determination to make sure that whoever did this to her family wouldn't escape justice, that her son's death wouldn't go unanswered. By 5:10, surveillance cameras captured the lime green Kia Soul fleeing the scene at high speed, racing away from Echo Highlands while no other vehicles left the neighborhood in that time frame. At that same moment, the Nissan's automatic crash detection system, triggered by the violent impact when the car hit the yard, automatically dialed 911, alerting emergency services that something catastrophic had occurred. When first responders arrived at the scene within minutes, they found a nightmare. Arkia Berry was slumped across the center console of her vehicle, her body positioned in a way that suggested she had been trying to reach toward the back seat, perhaps attempting to shield her son from the gunfire or to comfort him in his final moments of terror. Her efforts had been in vain. Landyn Brooks was still strapped into his booster seat on the driver's side rear of the vehicle, his small body riddled with bullets despite having just celebrated his 5th birthday 4 months earlier and being scheduled to start kindergarten in just a few weeks. Instead of beginning elementary school that fall, Landyn became one of Birmingham's 75th, 76th, and 77th homicide victims of 2024. Eric Ashley Jr. was found slumped in the front passenger area where he had died while attempting to drive them to safety, his final act an attempt to protect the woman he loved and her child. All three were pronounced dead at the scene. There was nothing paramedics could do. One detail at the crime scene immediately told investigators something crucial about the nature of this attack. Money was found scattered around the vehicle, cash that had apparently been in the car, but was completely ignored by whoever committed the shooting. The presence of that money, left behind and untouched, meant that robbery wasn't the motive for this attack. This wasn't someone trying to steal from them. This was personal. This was targeted. And according to some unverified reports that emerged later, the attack was allegedly connected to $2,000 that may have involved a debt McGregor owed, possibly tied to narcotics transactions. The Birmingham Police Department immediately launched a major investigation, recognizing the severity of a triple homicide that included a 5-year-old child.
We've deployed all of our detectives in the Birmingham Police Department to focus on these two particular cases to bring justice. And for those who are responsible for those heinous crimes, I want you to know that we will be coming for you with full force. With every piece of law enforcement that we have, we will be coming for you.
What they uncovered over the following months was a trail of digital evidence, witness testimony, and surveillance footage that all pointed toward one person, Jacorrian McGregor. The lime green Kia Soul that had fled the scene became a crucial piece of the puzzle. The very next day, on July 14th, the vehicle was discovered burned in the 9200 to 9300 block of 13th Avenue North. Someone had intentionally set it on fire, clearly hoping to destroy any evidence that might link them to the crime, any fingerprints, DNA, or trace evidence that could prove who had been driving. But investigators were able to identify the vehicle through its VIN number and license plate despite the fire damage. By tracking the car's movements through Birmingham's Flock safety camera system, a network of license plate readers and surveillance cameras positioned throughout the city, they learned the Kia had been stolen approximately 5 or 6 days before the shooting. Oddly enough, the registered owner had never reported it stolen, a strange detail that would later become a point of contention during court proceedings and that defense attorneys would seize upon. The breakthrough in the case came from an unexpected source. A witness who had been driving a black Mercedes that day came forward to speak with investigators. This person admitted to being friends with both Eric Ashley and Arkia Berry, which gave them unique insight into the relationships and conflicts that may have led to the shooting. Surveillance footage confirmed what the witness told police. The black Mercedes had been following the lime green Kia Soul multiple times throughout July 13th, before the shooting occurred. When detectives traced the Mercedes through its license plate and sat down with the driver for a formal interview, they heard something that would blow the case wide open. The witness personally identified Jacorrian McGregor as the person who had been driving the lime green Kia Soul that day. But the account became even more damning when the witness told investigators that shortly after the shooting took place, McGregor had confessed directly to them, saying he had shot the victims. This represented a direct admission of guilt, according to what the witness reported to authorities, though it would later be challenged as hearsay evidence. Jacorrian McGregor was 25 years old at the time of the shooting, standing 6 feet 2 inches tall and weighing approximately 165 pounds. He had a criminal history that included violent offenses and theft-related crimes. In 2021, he had pleaded guilty to receiving stolen property, a conviction that resulted in a suspended 20-year sentence and probation rather than actual prison time. By the summer of 2024, McGregor also had outstanding warrants for failure to appear on first-degree robbery charges and receiving stolen property charges. He was someone who was already wanted by law enforcement, someone who was avoiding court dates and evading accountability for previous crimes. The digital forensic evidence that investigators gathered revealed even more about McGregor's involvement and his state of mind after the shooting. Detectives analyzed his phone using specialized forensic tools like Celebrite, technology that can extract data even from devices where information has been deliberately deleted. They discovered that messages from the day of the shooting had been intentionally erased from McGregor's phone. But forensic technology allowed investigators to recover fragments of those deleted conversations, revealing something extremely suspicious. Multiple associates had been texting McGregor after the shooting, sending him urgent messages telling him to lay low, to stay out of sight, and to stay hidden. The obvious question investigators asked was, why would someone need to hide immediately after a triple homicide unless they had something to do with it? The evidence continued mounting when police executed a search warrant on McGregor's residence and discovered guns and drugs inside. While these items were not directly linked to the homicide itself in official court testimony, they suggested McGregor was involved in criminal activity that could potentially explain the motive behind the shooting. Combined with the alleged $2,000 debt that some sources claim was tied to narcotics deals, the picture started coming together of a meeting that went fatally wrong over money and drugs. Some sources have suggested that Eric Ashley withdrew $2,000 from his bank account in the days before the shooting, money that vanished under circumstances tied to speculation that McGregor owed this amount, possibly from a drug transaction that had gone bad. Text messages between Eric and McGregor in the hours before the shooting allegedly included tense language like, "You're running out of time," and references to settling up or making a drop, though these specific messages have not been officially confirmed by police in court testimony. What investigators could confirm beyond any doubt was that a planned meeting occurred at the same location, that both parties' phones were there at the same time, and that within minutes of that meeting, 3 people were dead. For 7 long months, the investigation continued as detectives worked methodically, following every lead and analyzing every piece of evidence they could gather. Meanwhile, the Birmingham community remained devastated by the senseless violence. Vigils were organized to honor Landyn's memory, with dozens of people gathering to mourn the loss of an innocent child caught in the crossfire of adult conflicts he had nothing to do with.
This they time to express themselves. Some kids don't know how to express themselves to their parents, and we have to step up and.
Finally, on February 24th, 2025, 7 months after the shooting that tore apart 3 families, the Birmingham Police Department's crime reduction team made their move. Working alongside the United States Marshals Service Gulf Coast Regional Fugitive Task Force and officers from the Alabama Bureau of Pardons and Paroles, they arrested Jacorrian McGregor in the 900 block of Avondale Lane in Birmingham. The arrest happened without incident, and McGregor was booked into Jefferson County Jail 2 days later on February 26th. McGregor was charged with capital murder under Alabama law for causing the deaths of 2 or more people during the same criminal episode. This charge carries only 2 possible sentences: the death penalty or life in prison without the possibility of parole. There is no lesser sentence available. Prosecutors also charged him with the 2 outstanding failure to appear warrants related to his previous robbery and stolen property cases. On April 17, 2025, the first major court proceeding took place when a preliminary hearing was held in Jefferson County District Court, with Judge William Bell presiding. This marked the first time the public got to hear detailed testimony about the evidence prosecutors had compiled against McGregor over the previous 10 months. Deputy District Attorney Sharissa Hendricks represented the prosecution, while defense attorney John Robbins stood for McGregor. The prosecution called only one witness to testify, Birmingham Police Department homicide detective Jacorrian McGregor, who methodically walked the court through every piece of evidence investigators had gathered. Detective Tolliver laid out the case piece by piece, presenting the phone records showing Eric Ashley calling the number saved as Jaco at the exact moment they entered the Echo Highlands neighborhood. He presented the cell tower data that placed both McGregor's phone and Ashley's phone in the same location at the time of the shooting. He showed surveillance footage capturing the lime green Kia Soul's movements before and after the attack. He detailed the witness who identified McGregor as the driver of that Kia and who claimed McGregor confessed to committing the shooting. He explained the deleted text messages found on McGregor's phone advising him to hide. And of course, he presented Arkia Berry's final text message, Jaco, sent at 5:09 as bullets were tearing through her vehicle. But defense attorney John Robbins pushed back forcefully against the prosecution's narrative, arguing that the evidence was largely circumstantial in nature and lacked the kind of direct physical proof needed to definitively place his client at the scene pulling the trigger. Robbins pointed out that there was no video footage showing the actual shooting taking place. No fingerprints were recovered from inside the Kia Soul. No DNA evidence connected McGregor to the vehicle. And none of the shell casings found at the scene had been directly linked to any weapon recovered from McGregor's possession. He highlighted the suspicious fact that the Kia's owner had never reported the vehicle stolen, calling that detail unusual and potentially problematic for the prosecution's entire theory of the case. He challenged the reliability of cell phone ping data, emphasizing that being in the same general area doesn't prove you committed a crime. And he pointed out that the witness's claim about McGregor's confession was hearsay testimony filtered through Detective Tolliver rather than presented directly to the court. Robbins told Judge Bell that the case was somewhat suspect and based upon circumstantial evidence, and filed a motion asking the judge to dismiss all charges against his client for lack of sufficient evidence. But Judge Bell reviewed the evidence presented by the prosecution and ruled that they had met the legal standard required for a preliminary hearing. He found sufficient probable cause to believe McGregor had committed the crimes and bound the case over to a grand jury for further review and potential indictment. Here's where the timeline of justice starts breaking down in a frustrating way. As of today, nearly 2 full years after the shooting that killed Arkia, Landyn, and Eric, and almost a year since McGregor's arrest, there has been no grand jury indictment issued in the case and no trial scheduled. Jacorrian McGregor remains locked up in Jefferson County Jail in pretrial detention status, held without bond with no court dates currently on his docket. The case appears stuck in legal limbo, caught in the slow machinery of Alabama's capital punishment system. We're talking about 3 human beings whose lives were violently stolen from them and from their families. And that's the part of this case that statistics, court filings, and timelines can never fully capture. Arkia Berry wasn't just a name in a police report or a victim number in a database. She was a mother who worked long hours on her feet braiding hair and building a future for her son. She was an artist who took pride in her craft. She was a daughter, a cousin, a friend who meant something to the people who knew her. In her final moments, even as death was coming for her, she thought clearly enough to send a message that might bring justice. Landyn Brooks wasn't just a child victim or a statistic. He was a 5-year-old boy who should have been worrying about learning his ABCs and making friends in kindergarten, not sitting in the back seat of a car moments away from death. He should be 10 years old now, playing sports, going to school, growing into whoever he was meant to become. Instead, his life was stolen before it really began. And Eric Ashley wasn't collateral damage or someone in the wrong place at the wrong time. He was a man who, in his final moments, tried to move into the driver's seat and get the people he loved out of danger. He died trying to save them, which says everything about who he was as a person. The families of these 3 victims continue to wait for justice, for a trial date, for answers, for some sense of closure that may never fully come. Arkia's cousin and other family members have spoken about the pain of waiting, about holidays and birthdays marked by absence, about a little boy who will never grow up. What are your thoughts on this case? Do you think Arkia's final text message and the circumstantial evidence will be enough to convict McGregor? How do you feel about the slow pace of justice in capital murder cases? Share your perspective in the comments below. If you believe this case deserves attention and that Arkia, Landyn, and Eric deserve justice, please like this video and share it. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for updates on this case and other true crime stories where we honor victims and demand accountability. Thank you for watching.